About a week ago, a viewer named Cedar Break suggested that I do a video on how to cross a stream safely. Now, if you like to hike or to explore in the great outdoors, and you're coming down a trail and all of a sudden you come to a stream and you realize that the trail continues on the other side. When crossing a stream, there's a few things that you should know, like where and how to cross the stream. These important things will help you prevent injuries or even worse, and also to keep you upright instead of in that water doing the crappie flop. Now for over 30 years, I've been wading these streams while fly fishing. In those early days, I used to study entomology, which is a study of aquatic insects, which I used to teach in the schools during the spring semester. One of the first things I learned was the anatomy of a stream, which leads us to the first part of this episode, where to cross. Now, there is three parts to a stream. There are pools, there's riffles, and runs. Now the pools are usually deep with slow moving water. And the riffles are shallow with fast, turbulent water running over rocks that are near or above the water surface. Now the runs are sections that are deeper than the riffles, but normally not as deep as the pools, with fast water and little or no turbulence. Now the section that you're looking for to cross is the shallow riffle area. Now the riffles are generally above the pool, then the pool will go into the run, and then the run back to the riffle. But that's not always the case. Sometimes the riffles are below the pool. So with that being said, if I'm hiking down the trail and it leads me to the shallow riffle area, I'll just cross. Now, if the trail leads me to an area that's a pool, I'll look up and downstream to find the riffles. If I don't see any, then I'll hike upstream and look for the riffle and shallow area. Now, if the trail leads me to the run, and I look both ways and I don't see any riffle, then I'll head downstream to look for those shallow areas. Now I'd like to share with you when's a good time of the year to cross. Now in the springtime when the snow is melting, these streams will really swell up, so you have to be very careful. Now if you're planning a trip at that time and there's a stream that you have to cross, maybe you should try to plan a different trip or a different area. And another thing you should consider is when there's a heavy rainstorm and all those tributaries will dump into these streams, they will really swell in fast water. So you have to be very careful to look for those shallow riffles because they'll be a little bit deeper, so be careful when you cross. Now a little tip I'd like to share with you. Before you go upstream to cross, look where you're at right now and find a landmark like a tree, and then you go upstream, cross the stream, and then you can look down where that landmark is. It makes it a lot easier to find that location where the trail continues. And remember this, when you're going upstream and you're off in the trail and in the woods, stay as close to the stream as you can because you don't want to get too far out and get disorientated or maybe even lost. Now the next thing to consider is, what are you wearing on your feet? For an example, most people will use hiking boots. When they come to those riffle areas, they will walk right on the rocks and they'll be just fine. Or if they have waterproof boots, they can walk in the water where it's really shallow. But now if the water's too deep in those riffles, you have to be careful You never want water to get inside your boot because they will tear up your feet. Now when the water is too deep, you're gonna have to take off those boots. You can attach them with a carabiner to your pack. Otherwise, you can tie the laces together and drape it over your neck. But do whatever works best for you. And if you don't have any camp shoes, then you're going to have to cross that stream barefoot. And you have to be careful not to cause any injuries. Otherwise, if you have a pair of camp shoes, they work great. They're dual purpose, not only for comfort at camp and airing out your feet, but also for crossing streams. But a style of camp shoes I don't recommend are those flip-flop styles, because when you're in the water, your feet will shift around on it, and there's no strap in the back to keep your foot against that camp shoe. And also, you guys, okay, there's people like my son that loves them. And people in the Far East in Nepal, I've seen guys in Nepal hiking up in the mountains with those flip-flops with a heavy pack. But if you're just starting out, I strongly recommend not going with those, because it's a possibility you might do a flop in that stream. Now, what I believe to be the best camp shoes, not only for camp but for crossing those streams, are Crocs, and that's no croc. Let alone do they have a guard in front to protect your foot from hitting those rocks, and also a strap in the back that flips up and down that goes over your heel to secure your foot to the Crocs. But also, you guys are very comfortable. I believe they're the best camp shoes, hands down. Boom! Now, what I believe to be the best footwear for hiking are trail runners. Let alone are they comfortable like those Crocs, but also when you cross the streams, you don't have to take them off. You can go right across the stream. What makes the trail runners such a great footwear is that they have small portholes on the side near the bottom and a mesh top for draining water from within. And you'd be amazed how quickly they dry. When I get out of that stream and I start hiking down that trail again, before I know it, my feet are pretty much dry. And if not, when I get to camp, I take out those insoles and I let them dry overnight. The next morning when I put them on, I'm ready to go. But a boot could take days to dry, and it could ruin your trip. Now, for some people, they'll like to take their socks off before they cross. But for me, I have thin layer wool socks. I just leave them on when I cross, and they dry off pretty quickly. Now, another thing I highly recommend is having hiking sticks or trekking poles. You just want one of them. Take one, put it in your pack, and have the other as you cross. And when you find yourself tripping, it'll keep you nice and stable and catch yourself instead of falling into the stream. And if you don't have hiking poles, look for a dead branch and use it as a walking stick. Now let's talk about how to cross a stream. First of all, do not attempt to cross a deep stream with fast-moving water. If you have any doubts, find a safer spot to cross. And another thing to consider is do not cross a pool, because those runs or riffles will drop sediment into the pool and dump it down in there, and that slow-moving water will drop to the bottom and it'll fill up with soft mud, and when you cross, you might get stuck in the mud. Now again, always try to wear some type of footwear to protect your feet from underwater hazards and to give you traction. And also those hiking poles for balance that will give you stability. Using them as a stable tripod with the stick in your two legs, and always move with two solid points of contact. Keep the stick on the upstream side so that the current will keep it in place. It is wise to unbuckle the sternum strap and the waist belt on your pack before crossing. If needed, you could throw off your pack so it does not fill with water and drag you down. When crossing fast water, I always like to face upstream, lean into the current against my hiking stick, and shuffle your feet sideways. Always maintain 2 points of contact with the bottom of the stream. 2 feet or 1 foot in the stick to keep a solid base. Crossing a stream or river can be dangerous, so please be careful. If you do it a little different, or you have any suggestions or comments or questions, please write them down below. I'd love to hear from you. This is the Marine. Thank you for watching, and God bless.